Thank you. We're gonna continue to carry on our research and our study and look at how the United Satanic Front has been actually getting our children inducted into Satanism and witchcraft worship. And remember that we covered in the last session, we covered in a lot of the things about Pokemon, and we saw that a lot of things in Pokemon we also saw in witchcraft. Now we're going to look at a subject that covers paganism, and it's in the form of a toddler's show, and it's called Teletubbies. Now, the sound, when the children hear this sound on TV, it's time for Teletubbies, it's time for Teletubbies. Hundreds, literally hundreds of toddlers run to their television set, and they plop down in front of that TV set to watch 1 hour of 4 roly-poly creatures go through their everyday routines. And, you know, one of the things that I did is I actually sat there and I had to actually make myself watch it, but I actually sat there and watched about 4 or 5 of these shows. And the thing that appeared to me the most and really stuck out the most in my mind was this one thing. There were no mommy and daddy Teletubbies in the movie, in the program. They're never presented that way. In fact, we're told that these are babies, high-tech babies. Now remember that I told you that it doesn't make any difference what I say, it's what their own material says. Well, I brought with me tonight actually a statement by Ann Wood, and this is their creator at British Broadcasting Company, because this thing started out as being a BBC production, British Broadcasting Company, and then America picked it up with PBS and started putting it on PBS. And Ann Wood says this: they are babies, technological babies. Like children, they also imitate what they hear, so they will attempt to speak like the narrator and sometimes like the voice trumpets. The Teletubby world is full of pretty flowers, rabbits, warm hugs, and high-tech marvels, but it's also completely void of parental guidance. And the one thing that's the mystery about the whole show is that your toddler sits in front of the TV watching these roly-poly creatures that look like aliens, and the whole mystery is to find out or to try to figure out which one of the Teletubbies television screens, because that's why they're called Teletubbies, they have a television screen in their stomach, which one of those Teletubby creatures will actually be the one that a clip about children will actually show on that television screen. And you notice one thing that you'll see is if you'll watch that program that every one of those clips are about children. No parents in those clips either. So what are they actually saying? Well, when you look at the program, it looks innocent enough. But I want to point out something to you. I want to point out a couple of things here, first before we get started. Number one, the most prevalent actual character in that program is a baby-faced son. And I mean this son actually has an animated baby's face. And every time that the Teletubbies do something that the son likes, it'll smile at him, grin, giggle. But every time that they do something that it doesn't like, it'll frown at him as if it's really getting angry. And it seems to put fear in the Teletubbies. At some points in the program, the Teletubbies will even rebel, and the sun gets really angry. And also, around the sun, it starts to really glow. In other words, like the flames around that sun start to get hotter, as if he's really getting mad and angry. The other thing is that out of the ground comes what's called a voice trumpet. In other words, this trumpet comes up out of the ground. It's actually a voice horn that comes up out of the ground, and it announces everything that the Teletubbies are to do. It's time to play. It's time to eat. It's time to sleep. It's time to go. Everything that they do is announced and directed by that voice trumpet. Not a mother and dad. Not grandparents. Not aunts and uncles. No parental guidance whatsoever. But yet we're told that these are babies. Remember, Ann Wood said these are high-tech babies. And Andy Davenport, he's a scriptwriter for this program, says this: children are the same the world over. They grow, they learn language, they learn to talk, to think the same wherever they grow up. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't particularly believe that particular statement. And the reason for that is, if I don't want my child believing the same thing that another child believes in another country if they're serving a different God, or if they're going against parental authority, or if they're going against any kind of guidance whatsoever, I don't want my child thinking the same as that child. She also goes on to say that we have to quit bogging down our children with values and morals and standards to the point to where they don't understand or that they feel out of place. Now, these characters are actually actors in costumes, and they are taught to walk like toddlers, talk like toddlers, play like toddlers, even eat like toddlers, so that your toddler watching them will identify with them. And so everything that they watch these Teletubby toddlers do, now that becomes their role model, and they try to imitate that. And I don't know if you have children that watch Teletubbies or not, but I mean, when they're glued to that TV set, you can talk to them. They don't hear a word you're saying. It's almost like they're mesmerized. That's their favorite one. You hear them giggle and laugh and everything else, and mom and dad sit there and go, oh, that's such a good program because, you know, it keeps my child entertained. Sure, it's entertainment, but don't we know that witchcraft is also entertaining? And lovable alien-like creatures. Now, these are played again by real people, and Teletubbies, in Teletubby land, everything is supplied for them. Not by moms and dads, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. Everything is supplied by them by this baby-faced son and by this voice trumpet. In fact, they have Teletubby custard, they have Teletubby toast, and there's even a comical vacuum cleaner named Nunu. And it goes around and makes the Teletubbies laugh. And so it looks real innocent. And the Teletubbies may be fantasy creatures in a fantasy world, but young toddlers pick up everything that they do. In other words, they watch that and they identify with that. And in his book, All of Our Children Learning, Dr. Benjamin Bloom, the father of outcome-based education, states this: the purpose of education in the schools is to change the thoughts, feelings, and actions of students. Now think about that for a minute. Just stop and think about what that statement just said. Now let's turn that around and listen to what it says to you individually. The purpose of education and the schools is to change the thoughts, feelings, and actions of my child. Where are those thoughts and actions supposed to be changed? At home, not the schools. We don't want the schools changing the thoughts and feelings of our children. That's what makes them special. That's what makes them unique. You know, I don't want my child to come home and say, oh, I can't laugh anymore because I learned in school that's against authority. You know, that sort of thing. So I don't want the schools, and I'm sure you don't want the schools, actually taking over and doing that. But how many know that that's exactly what the school system has done? In fact, a book we're going to talk about a little later, Harry Potter, there are many, many schools who are now requiring that for required reading in elementary schools. And it's nothing more than unadulterated witchcraft. So when we look at this thing, again, on the surface, it looks real enticing because it's entertaining. And the Teletubby world is the best attempt to touch preschoolers with the seeds of this New Age ideology. Because now you start to see that we have man-made gods because we have the sun. Okay, and in any pagan culture, the sun has always been worshipped as a god. And example, winter solstice on December 19th, 1991. And now, I actually have the pamphlet that they sent out, and here's what it is. And on December 19th, 1991, a public elementary school in Portland, Oregon, replaced their traditional Christmas party with a solstice festival. And here's what their printed program was entitled: Celebrate the Return of the Light. And it pictured the sun god and the moon goddess. Who is the moon goddess? We talked about that the last session. Diana. She's the goddess of the moon, and she's the highest witchcraft god. Okay? And it said, pictured the sun god and the moon goddess, and here's what the events read. Listen to this. Each student will partake of the sun and moon cake before entering the auditorium, where they will seat themselves according to their astrological signs. Chanting will begin. Then it goes on to say, the sun god and moon goddess will enter with attendants, and then dancers and drummers will enter. Barcode children and animal spirits. Now I only leave that to your imagination as to what that barcode children are. And then he says, it goes on in the last one on there, it says, dancing in a circle together, feel free to hoop and holler. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's pagan occult. And all the symbols that they have in there, the sun, the moon, those are all pagan symbols, and those are all occult symbols. We examined that. So we need to examine the official description of each Teletubby to find out exactly where it is. Now, first we're going to look at, this is Poe, okay, on the screen here. This is Poe, and it's the smallest Teletubby. And this is a girl. And she often jumps, and she jumps up and down to express her feelings of joy and enthusiasm and surprise. And the natural place for her to be is on her scooter going over the hills. So this is Poe, and she also makes a noise. She'll say quickly, 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 or slowly, slowly, slowly. And she also spends a lot of time on her own. Again, away from parental authority or any kind of guidance from parents. Okay? So first of all, this is Poe. Now, I want you to notice that each Teletubby, remember we said that each Teletubby has a screen on their stomach, a television screen. Well, in order for you to be able to show a clip, or for them to be able to show any kind of an image on that television screen, there has to be a receiver. And so the antenna on top of the head becomes that receiver. And isn't it odd that each one of these Teletubbies have a different antenna? In fact, my question was, why don't they all have the same antenna? In other words, if these are all babies, they all come from the same place, and they all seem to be basically in a Teletubby family, all of their own, then why don't they have the same antenna? Why are all those antennas different? Now, these symbols are simple shapes, but if you'll also remember, in the last session, we said that the circle represented the female womb. And in pagan cultures, it's also a powerful symbol of female serpentine power. In other words, fertility. And you notice on there that it also it symbolizes a spiritized mother goddess, because that's also in paganism referred to as the earth. symbolizing the earth. And to contemporary pagans and radical feminists, it's one of the primary feminine signs. So that's Poe, the littlest one, and the one with the antenna with the circle. But keep that one in mind. The next one we're going to look at is called Dipsy. We'll go back to that one. This is Dipsy. And now you'll notice that Dipsy has a different antenna, and I'm going to pull that down just a little bit so you can see the top of that. And you'll notice that when it comes up, it doesn't come up to a fine point, and it doesn't come up and round off. It comes up here, comes into a curve, and then rounds off again, clearly a phallic symbol. If you'll look at that real close, you'll see the phallic symbol. It looks like a phallus. And in every pagan culture, the rod has always represented a phallus. And that is a powerful symbol for male fertility. Pagan cultures, even on the Celtic fertility symbols, they have a holiday called Beltane, and a May Day, the maypole, symbolized by male power. That's exactly what this represents. Now, the interesting thing about Dipsy is that when you start to look at it, this is the second biggest Teletubby, and he's also known for his distinctive steps and way of saying hello. So again, now this is going to really appeal to your toddler. Dipsy, Poe. Then we look at the third one. And this is Lala. And if you look at Lala, this is the second smallest Teletubby. And she's by far the happiest and the most smiley of all the Teletubbies. And she loves to dance. And she loves to sing. And her favorite word is nice. But now, we start to look at the antenna on Lala, and look what's happened. Here we have the male symbol, or I'm sorry, the female symbol of the circle, and it doesn't just break off and go separate. It goes from the female symbol right into the male phallic symbol. So you'll look at that, and you see as it comes up, it curves around, forms the circle, and then comes up and forms the rod. And now again at the top, when you see this, you can see clearly that it looks like a phallus. Then we come to the last one, the fourth one, and the fourth one is the most interesting of all. And you don't know how hard it is to say the names of these little things, because I mean I had to sit there and watch these things. Okay, so this is Tinky Winky. I said it. Okay, Tinky Winky. And he's by far the biggest Teletubby, and he's the gentlest of the Teletubbies. In fact, he's so gentle, he has everything in a bag. And you know, the one thing that I noticed about, and in the episode that I watched on this, he loves wearing a smaller, little white ballet skirt. And he loves to dance in a white tutu, or ballet skirt. And I looked at that and I said, what in the world is that supposed to represent? And then it dawned on me, because I looked up here and I saw this antenna. Remember that when we saw in the last session, we looked at the occult symbols, we looked at the pagan symbols, and we said the triangle was a representation of earth, wind, and fire, the basic elements of all witchcraft. We also said that it was a powerful spell-casting symbol. But if you notice this now, we have a triangle that's pointing down, and the triangle is in multiple forms. And it's pictured in alchemy as a sexual rite. In fact, in Buddhism, it's referred to as a sex sign. And isn't it strange that the gay and lesbian community have now taken the upside-down triangle as their logo, their symbol. And they've also adopted the color purple, which is the color that Tinky Winky is. And then it dawned on me, that's why he dances in a ballet skirt. I know it sounds funny, but I mean, you look at this thing and you know, it looks real innocent, but when you look at it on the surface, it looks really fun and it looks really, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with them, they're just cute. But when you look underneath of what they're really trying to say, Marilyn Ferguson, the author of The Aquarian Conspiracy, a New World Order blueprint for changing people's perception, she states this, listen to this. In order to teach children of tomorrow a new perception of reality, we must make symbols and their evolving and politically correct meanings more fun and familiar than the home-taught words, values, and meanings. And so now what they're saying is they're teaching your toddler through symbols. And if you go even further, Andy Davenport, the scriptwriter, goes further to say that we've been bogging down our toddlers and our young people with all these values and morals and standards for too long, making them feel out of place if they're in a different environment. And then he goes on to state what that different environment is. Listen to this. He says that if a child grows up in a home where mom is a woman and dad is another woman, that we should teach them that it's okay. And if a child grows up in a home where dad is a man and mom is another man, that it's okay. That we can't let them feel out of place. That we have to teach them that this is a different symbol and that everything is the way it should be, and that that kind of value and that kind of standard should be looked at as being acceptable and okay. And so what is the true message behind Teletubbies, these roly-poly creatures that our toddlers watch? That gay is okay. Now we start to see that these things are taken on a different light. Now we start to see that they have actually found a way to make evil look cute and take God's principles and make them look ridiculous. And that's what they're trying to portray to our toddlers. So next time your toddler sits in front watching Teletubbies, remember that there's a message being portrayed to him or her, and it's not a good one. Remember that the message is gay is okay. And lifestyle learning back in 1973, this lifelong process of socialization, they said it would start soon after birth with community training sessions for parents, and then they're supposed to teach the parents how to teach their children. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go to a class where I feel like if I'm a parent, I don't need to go to a class for somebody to teach me how to be a parent. And I know a lot of parents out there don't feel that way either. But this is this new schooling that's coming about. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, it's on the rise. Because if you don't think that witchcraft, paganism, and Satanism is on the rise, you need to open up your eyes. I believe, and this is my own opinion, but I believe that the New Age religion, or the new religion when the Antichrist comes into power, is not going to be a New Age movement at all. In fact, it's not even going to be a worship back of nature. I believe that the new religion is going to be the old religion, and it's going to be prevalent upon the earth, and it's going to be nothing more than return to witchcraft, the practice of magic and symbols. Because see, we're all grounded in symbols. Now, I've seen witchcraft packaged in many different ways, but never so cleverly as this one. This is Harry Potter. And this is the book right here. And this is the first book that was out. Now, Harry Potter, actually this is a craze that came out just before this last Christmas. In fact, just before Christmas 1999. And it amazed me that I was seeing more reports that children were asking for this book and the series in this book more than they were asking for toys. And I thought, that's kind of unusual. Because here, the Christmas before, the biggest thing was what? Furbies. Everybody had to have one. Okay? There, one time, you know how Christmas goes. One time it might be Power Rangers, and your child has to have one because everybody's got one. And then there might be Pokemon because every other kid's got one now.